Hello, my name is Renee Nicholson, Director of West Virginia University's Humanities Center, and as a partner in the 2022 Longform Scholarship Celebration on our campus, I'm here today with Heather Cole, who's a professor in the Reed College of Media and the founder of Mon River Games, which will be featured at this year's event. Heather, so glad to talk to you today. And to start off, I was hoping you could describe your project for us.
Sure thing. Okay, so back last spring, I had an idea, and the idea was that there was a couple of different issues that I was having in class that were like creative kind of issues, where I was like, I really wanted a place for students to be able to go to get professional experience with game design and game development in the area, and it doesn't really exist. So I thought to myself, okay, if something doesn't exist, and this was very often the mantra from my college, I got to college way back, if it doesn't exist, build it. So that's what I decided to do after some consorting with my chair and my dean, Diana Martinelli. They both encouraged me to just go ahead and go for it. And I started the process all throughout the summer. And then we officially kind of piloted our first group of Mon River Games team members in the fall. We made our first set of games then, and pretty much the overall goal is to have professional development experiences for anyone that's passionate about game design. We have like secondary goals of just kind of collaboration and getting together, but really just supporting those professional development opportunities. It was great because a lot of our some of our team members, along with a club that I manage, got to go to a really big conference in San Francisco just a couple of weeks ago too, which was also great. Yeah, I think that answers the question.
I think so too, and it sounds like you've really developed a community of people through the Mon River Games site and the work that you're doing together.
Yep, and we kind of switch out every semester about, and then in the summer, this is our first summer, we're going to keep it fully open. So it doesn't have to be students. If you have an interest in game design and game development, we're going to have like weekly like Zoom kind of like coffee hour chats where we can just talk about our ideas. And if someone needs help on an idea or making art or making sound or like even the development process or looking at portfolios, we're going to be up for that. So it's community wide in the summer, not just restricted to students on the campus.
Well, that's fantastic. So you're really literally taking down the walls of the university and extending it out. That's fantastic.
Right.
So Heather, talk to me a little bit about how you develop your creative ideas. I mean, clearly this is motivated by a deep creative strain.
Yeah, no, so I love making stuff, right? And I really enjoy helping others make things as well. And I got into game design and game development probably about 5 years ago. I was pulled in by a coworker that does games, and he has his own studio now over in Erie, PA. I'm sorry, repeat the question. I lost it.
Sure, it's how do you develop your creative ideas?
Oh, okay. So what we do is we do pitch sessions. And during those pitch sessions, we have some sort of theme usually, like at least during the semester, like we have like fun, what is fun, right? And we try to make a game that's fun, or something a little bit more serious. What is meaningful to you? And then we might try to make a game that's a little bit more serious and meaningful off of that. Usually they'll pitch in groups, like small teams. Sometimes they'll pitch individually. And then what happens after those pitches is the whole studio gets to vote on the project they want to work on. And then they get to pick their roles, like who's going to be an animator, who's going to be a designer, who's going to be on social media, who's going to be a developer. And it's just it's a good, fun, democratic process, more or less.
Yeah, it sounds very collaborative.
Yeah, that's the spirit of it for sure.
Yeah, wow. And so what areas do these games address? I mean, when I think of games, this will be showing my age, I'm thinking of the old Atari system we first got in the 80s,
Yeah.
and playing Frogger and Pac-Man, right? And Games of
Frogger,
Gone.
Pac-Man, shooter games probably is usually what people think about.
Right. And we've evolved way past that now.
Oh
So maybe talk
yeah.
to us a little bit
Like we
about.
now have the capabilities to be able to have an in-depth storyline and great art assets. Like we didn't used to be able to, produce these really multicolored, art assets or more than 8-bit sound. So like there was constriction there in games that were able to be made because of computer memory and computer graphics. And now it's pretty much limitless. Like you can make a game out of almost anything. You could make like a game out of little clay figures that you photograph and take the background out of. Like it's just so much fun, the possibilities on it.
Wow, that's exciting. So what do you hope is the impact of your work?
I just hope that I'm building the structure that we need to collaborate more in the area. I am aiming towards this being more of a nonprofit. So I'm working on the paperwork for that. It's probably going to take me a while. Right
Sure.
now, it's registered in the state of West Virginia as a voluntary organization.
Hmm.
So all the games that we make, if we make any kind of profit out of anything that directly goes to the studio, it'll go back into funding those like professional development opportunities. But games that we collaborate with, obviously, if we're collaborating and we're not like officially pushing it out, then they would keep all their profits, to themselves. So
Sure.
but yeah,
Sure.
the idea really is just to build that structure from the ground up because we have a lot of passionate, interested people in the area. And we just need to get together really. So
Right. And so if folks go to Mind River Games now, they can find it, on the internet. What kind of games are they going to be seeing that have already been created, or what kind of projects might they see?
So we are 9 months in now. So what they're going to see at the moment are prototype games. And each semester, each like time that we have, we try to develop the ones that we had and then pitch a few more. So that's usually what they're going to see is like, again, not AAA, but more like indie 1-level prototypes at this time. But as we go, we're going to build up our asset library and we're going to build up, our information. And as we go, we should be able to, in probably about 3 years, I'm projecting, make these full-fledged games out of what we have, because you can only do so much in a single semester. Like you really need that longevity. And with us having our archives and with us, training people and so forth, eventually we're going to get there. There's a couple of the games that I like a lot right now on our site that I think are the best ones to play. Roscoe's Adventure. It's really short, really cute, fun to play. It's just kind of like a little platformer about this dog that got lost and needs to go home. And they were all learning, Unity, C#, the ones that were making development. We had a really great student that's graduating this semester, Joey Veda, that like really nailed down the development process. And so well that I invited him to come back in the fall as an independent study and to help out with the next group of, team members. So that's one that I would recommend.
Wow.
Another one that I would recommend, both the original and the revised version, is Purple House, which is pretty much just like a little, game about weird plants and that you can make. And then another one that's a little bit more meaningful, that one we have like a little award contest ceremony towards the end of the semester. But it won that last fall, is called Trooper Cooper. And what Trooper Cooper was aiming for is that they were looking at Alzheimer's and memory management. So they wanted to make a simple memory finding kind of game. So that's another good one to look at. I would say those 3 are the top ones that are all the way developed right now. We've got a couple coming out that'll be more developed by the end of the semester. And one of them is called Meowgantown. It's same premise of the dog one, only it's a cat this time, and it's Morgantown specifically. Our resident therapy dog Omega actually has a little spotlight in there where we're following this dog. to get there. You know, PRT's featured.
Nice.
Martin Hall has a little drawing of it featured in there. Like there's all these little Morgantown specific things in Meowgantown that are really cute. We got 2 versions of that up right now. One's the Unity version that the students are working on. That one is the one that still needs a few more weeks.
Sure.
And then there's one that I just kind of coded by myself as a prototype up there, and that one's more like done. I think you'd get the full experience out of that one right now if you really wanted to try it.
Great.
And then another one that's coming out this month is called A Mug of Mon County. And the idea here was more of a serious game that has meaning. So trying to
Sure.
feature local coffee shops. And they got 2 coffee shops to
Mhm.
agree with them at least, and go along with the idea and use their branding. So,
Nice.
so that'll be a fun one to show too.
Yeah, and it sounds like these opportunities really give the students sort of that real world taste of what working in this industry would be like.
Exactly, because they're all working according to their roles. They're working as a team collaboratively, and honestly, with the pandemic and everything, it's been hard on this group of students to really get to know each other. And I
Sure.
feel both semesters that I've done it this way, they get really tight knit together, and they just become this like little community that does really well with doing their tasks and so forth. And it's just great to see because you know they've had a rough couple of years. So
Absolutely. Well, this is just fascinating work that you're doing, and it's so exciting to see the ways in which the students are a part of your long form scholarship.
yeah, they're part of my creative process really. So it's like I can't really separate myself from their work and mine because we're all kind of in it together. So
Well, how absolutely extraordinary. And I just really appreciate you taking a little time to chat with us about what you're doing, and look forward to seeing what you come up with next.
yeah, thanks. And I look forward to seeing everyone at the reception too. That'll be nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.